Hello everyone, my name is Omar Ashhab. I live in Ramallah, Palestine, and today I'll be forwarding an article. I attend the American School of Palestine, and today I'll be forwarding an article called Ibn Firnas and His Contribution to the Aviation Technology of the World. And so I read this article and thought it was pretty interesting as it talks about aviation and flight in the early Arab Islamic world, as well as the first person to ever fly, Ibn Firnas. Here's a link to the article if anyone would like to read it. It's about 4 pages. The article's from ResearchGate. Here are the 6 authors, and they're from various universities in Malaysia. People have always dreamed of flying. They've always wanted to fly, and their thoughts and dreams of flying have been shown by ancient civilizations from as early as 3000 BC, and their sketches depicting the ability of humans to fly. And so one of the main reasons why people wanted to fly is because of their inspiration from birds. People from all times have been inspired by birds to fly, and therefore have studied the body and structure of birds in order to possibly develop their own method of flying. But that wasn't the only reason. The first and main reason why people during the 9th century, which was when Abbas ibn Firnas lived, the first and main reason why people during that time studied birds was not actually to fly, but rather to uncover the secrets of Allah's creation, as mentioned in the Quran, when He encourages people to observe the birds and seek knowledge to strengthen their faith. So there is also a religious perspective to it. In the first picture on the slide, that's a statue of Abbas ibn Firnas in Cordoba, Spain. The second picture is an example of an ancient sketch about flying. And then the third one is a bridge in Spain that was named after and in honor of Abbas ibn Firnas. So about Ibn Firnas. Abbas ibn Firnas was born in the 9th century in Al-Andalus, which was Muslim-ruled modern-day Spain. And he studied many subjects and was also known as a great poet. And he's sometimes referred to as the forgotten first man to fly because he's often overshadowed by the Wright brothers. Many people believe that the Wright brothers were actually the first people to fly, but they weren't. They were the first people to invent and fly the first motorized aircraft, while Ibn Firnas was actually the first known man to ever fly. He had a glider. And so about his aircraft, he began inventing his aircraft in 875 AD, and it was made from wood, silk, and feathers from different birds. And it was more of a glider than a modern day plane, as he had to be standing on an elevated level and glide down. And he'd flap the wings with his arms just like a bird. And so he continued to tweak his aircraft from time to time. And Ibn Firnas was in fact actually 65 years old when he first tested his aircraft in front of a crowd of spectators. He flew for more than about 10 minutes before he had a bad landing and crashed, and he was severely injured. He had a broken back, and so this injury prevented him from ever flying again, and he died a couple of years later. And so this could be considered both his first and last attempt at flying. He made some smaller scale attempts earlier while he was just testing the aircraft, but they were not, this was the first time it was in front of a crowd, and the first time it lasted this long. And it's also his last attempt because he was never able to fly after his injury. So in this photo, you could see his aircraft was more like a glider. It was very different from modern day aircraft, and he'd have to hold on to those handles to flap the wings, similar to how a bird flies. Here are some more pictures of him and his aircraft. And so after Ibn Firnas's failed attempt, he made an important realization. He realized that the tail was a vital structure for landing, just like a bird's tail. And so he then founded the Orithopter theory, elaborating on the importance of the tail, so-called the Orithopter. And so he was never able to build it because of his injury, which prevented him from ever flying again. But he founded this theory, which had a great impact on the field of aviation, because this theory inspired many people after him. And the theory was actually later confirmed by English philosopher Francis Bacon. And so Ibn Firnas, his aircraft lacked this tail. He didn't have this tail. So that's what resulted in his tragic landing. So the theory greatly impacted the field of aviation, as the tail is an important structure for stability during flight and especially during landing. And so Numerous people attempted to fly after Ibn Firnas, and just like him, many of the flights ended brutally. And so people began to believe that flying was impossible, and everyone who tried to failed. And so very few attempts to fly were made until the Renaissance, such as when Leonardo da Vinci made sketches of, though never actually built, the flying machine, and he included the ornithopter ideas in his sketches. So many people believe that Leonardo da Vinci actually built an aircraft, but he never did. He just made sketches of one. But in the photo, you could see he included Ibn Firnas's ornithopter theory, as there's a tail on the aircraft. And so he inspired many people after him, and it's an important structure during flight, especially and for landing, as it helps with stability. And even modern day aircrafts, all modern day aircrafts have them too. And the Wright brothers, they invented and flew the first engine-powered aircraft, which is why they're always credited for being the first people to fly, even though they weren't. They too actually, just like Ibn Firnas, started with simple gliding, and they also studied birds to perfect their aircraft. And so Abbas Ibn Firnas and the Wright brothers, they're actually more than 1,000 years apart. And the Wright brothers invented and flew the first motorized aircraft, while Ibn Firnas was the first known man to actually fly. And in conclusion, Abbas Ibn Firnas substantially contributed to and inspired the West's success in aviation, especially with his realization of the importance of the ornithopter for stability during flight and landing. And therefore, the article argues that Ibn Firnas should be considered the father of the aviation field of the world, and not the Wright brothers as many people believe. So if you enjoyed this, here are some links to other things for further reading. The first two links are links to articles that are a bit shorter and more of a biography about Ibn Firnas, and they don't only focus on just the aspect of flying, but his entire life. And then the third link is a link to a YouTube video. It's the same one you see on the right. It talks about how Abbas Ibn Firnas flew. And here's my contact information, my email if anyone would like to reach out. And I believe that's it. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it.